Once upon a time, or more precisely, July 23rd, 2016, at about 8:30 in the morning, a chance encounter at the Union Square Farmers Market in New York City began what can only be described as a fairy tale, but one with a complicated happily ever after.
And I looked over and I saw somebody I hadn't seen in a year or two.
That's Martha Teichner, longtime CBS News correspondent and award-winning journalist. She was at the farmer's market that day with her bull terrier, Minnie. They were both mourning the death of Goose, Martha's other bull terrier, and Minnie's close companion for many years. That's when she bumped into Stephen Miller Siegel. They were acquainted, as many New Yorkers are, from walking their dogs around the neighborhood.
Well, there he was at the farmer's market. I hadn't seen him in a year or two. I had never seen him at the farmer's market. He came over and said, "Well, where's Goose?" And I told him that Goose had died and that I had been searching for an older bull terrier male to be a companion to Minnie.
Call that meeting a coincidence, or maybe fate, or the guiding hand of the universe. Call it what you like. What happened next feels like one of those only in New York experiences.
And he pulled out his phone and he showed me a picture that he had taken when we were walking along the river a couple of years before. And he said, "Remember, I took this picture of Minnie and Goose to send to my friend Carol, who had a bull terrier." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, it's my friend Carol Fertig, and she's dying of liver cancer, and her dog Harry is 11 and a half, and nobody wants him. And she's desperate to find a home for him because she's been warned that she will probably have to have him put down because he will be difficult to rehome." And he said, "Would you take him?"
It was a deceptively simple question. Could this be the answer to Martha's wish for a companion for Minnie?
I heard this sound bubbling up out of me saying, "Well, yes, if they get along."
That condition, if they get along, was an out if Martha wanted to take it. But after learning a little bit about Carol Fertig,
Carol was arresting and larger than life and well-read. She was smart. She was incredibly funny. She had a rapier-like sense of humor, which stayed with her till the very, very, very end of her life.
it seemed like a foregone conclusion. Martha would take Harry when the time came. A first date was arranged for the dogs.
We sat out on the stoop for a couple of hours, and the dogs ignored each other completely. And Minnie kind of flounced herself around and showed Harry her behind, and Harry completely ignored her and went digging in my pocket for treats.
But the humans on that stoop had a lovely time. It was the beginning of a close and wonderful friendship. But sadly, one that would come with an ending.
You know, you worry about what it's going to be like meeting and getting to know and conversing with someone who's dying. You worry that it's going to be horrible, but it wasn't.
Carol's terminal liver cancer was the result of practically living next door to Ground Zero in the aftermath of 9/11. The two women had work to do. They had limited time to get Harry and Minnie to fall in love.
Carol and I were like silly mothers matchmaking. I would say that by the third time Harry came over, it was pretty clear they would get along. They started to play with each other and roughhouse and do all the moves, and Minnie diving under tables and Harry trying to go after her, and Minnie on the couch running back and forth, teasing him while he tried to figure out what was going on. And And Harry with the bowl, the metal bowl filled with tennis balls that he always carried around with him, jiggling it in his teeth and making noise with it and throwing the tennis balls, and Minnie tearing after. I mean, that kind of thing made it pretty clear that they liked each other.
It was puppy love, after all, or maybe more senior love. But Carol wasn't ready to turn Harry over to Martha just yet.
I had expected her to say, okay, here's Harry, 2-3 meetings, but it didn't work that way at all. And I came to realize very quickly that Harry symbolized life as she knew it, that she had to keep him as long as possible, because even if I said yes, having Harry till she couldn't take care of him anymore was how Carol clung to life. And anyway, I was fine with that because I really got to like the get-togethers. They were ostensibly to socialize the dogs, but pretty soon they were gatherings of friends.
This unexpected friendship could have been predestined. Fate had intervened years earlier in the 1990s.
I was walking up 10th Avenue, not too far from my house, and there was a restaurant with outdoor tables. And there she was sitting with her first bull terrier, a white one named Violet.
Martha stopped to introduce herself as a fellow dog lover of bull terriers. It was an encounter that she never forgot.
There was this singular-looking person with the big hat and big dark glasses and a dog named Violet. You don't ever forget a bull terrier named Violet.
Fate stepped in once again when Carol took Harry to the vet. Martha's bull terriers happened to be there, that very same vet, at the very same time, and although Martha wasn't there with them, Carol learned who they belonged to. Martha recounts what Carol later said about that day.
Martha Teichner has bull terriers, and she knew who I was because she watched Sunday Morning every Sunday. She said to me, you might not believe this, but because I knew about your dogs, she said, one of the very first things I thought after I was diagnosed was, wouldn't it be great if Martha Teichner took Harry? Well, of course, she didn't even have any connection with me at that point.
It wasn't until Martha bumped into Stephen that fateful morning at the farmer's market. That morning when the simple question, would you take him, was asked. That is when all these little coincidences began to form the connections that led to this beautiful but complicated fairy tale.
I said yes, and it was really, really, really profoundly meaningful to me because it led me to a set of experiences that I will treasure for the rest of my life. And yes, there were sad moments, and there were, ultimately I knew how the story would end, both for Carol and for Harry. But on the road to that, there was just so much richness and so much pleasure and so much fun even. And I came away completely revitalized in a way because I was able to break out and say yes.
And like all fairy tales, this one came to an end. After Carol passed away, Harry lived with Martha for 16 months before he died. Shortly thereafter, Minnie also crossed the Rainbow Bridge. With Carol's blessing, Martha wrote their story. It's called When Harry Met Minnie. The book is in stores now and also available as an audiobook, read in Martha's iconic voice. It's the legacy they all deserve, and one that came from simply saying yes. Thanks for watching this. Please hit the like button and subscribe so you can get more updates from Dog Podcast Network, where we have a growing slate of shows for dog lovers made by dog lovers. Check us out at dogpodcastnetwork.com.